Welcome to Learning from Experiences. I'm Ronik Agarwal, and today I'm joined with Professor Jamie Belinne. Professor Belinne is the Assistant Dean of CT Bauer College of Business and is also the founder and lead trainer at Building on Difference, which aims to help work groups and professionals understand each other and work together more productively. Professor Belinne, thank you for taking the time to join me today.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Undergraduate placement rate has increased from 38% to 90% under your tenure. What was the biggest catalyst for such a drastic and wonderful increase?
I think the biggest change is when we started implementing a career development course as one of the first classes that students take when they get to the college, because we wanted to make sure that as soon as students decide to major in business, they understand what are the career options available? What does it take to get those jobs? What types of steps can you take to take control over your destiny? And once we gave students the tools, they really took off because it was never a problem of not having great students. We always had great students. It was a matter of letting them know what they might want to do and how to get there.
That makes sense. And additionally, I want to talk to you about the power of informational interviews, something that I learned in your class. I've been using LinkedIn to connect with individuals and learn more about their career paths. How do you think the informational interview process helps students?
I think one of the things about being a student is that you're a learner and you're learning about so many things. And among those things, you're learning about different paths and different choices that you can make. And the best way to do that is learn from other people's mistakes and learn from other people's experiences rather than reinventing the wheel. And informational interviews give you a chance to sit down with somebody and find out about the decisions they made, the choices that they've had, what happened as a result. So you can decide what path is going to work for you.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. Another thing that I found on your LinkedIn profile is you wrote, too many employment failures are rooted in misunderstandings and poor communication. Can you please elaborate on that?
I can't tell you how many times I've seen students either miss an opportunity to get promoted or walk away from a job that could have been a great opportunity because they had some type of conflict. Either they had a manager or a coworker they couldn't get along with, or they felt like their needs weren't getting met and they didn't know how to do anything about it. And a lot of it is we've not always done a good job in our culture teaching people how do you ask for what you want in a way that can get you what you need? And how do you talk to somebody when things aren't working productively or effectively so that they can be productive and effective in a way that you're not hurting people's feelings, you're not alienating them, you're not infringing on their rights. I mean, there's ways to be both respectful and assertive, but we don't always teach that. And I think when people have those skills, it unlocks a world of opportunity for them.
Okay, so building off of that, how would you want, or how do you think someone can get those communicational skills that might help them in the workplace?
The more involved you are with working with people to solve problems, the more experience you'll get. Now, again, I'm a big fan of learning from other people's mistakes. And so these are things where informational interviews can teach you a lot sometimes. But even there's a lot of good books like Crucial Conversations, Difficult Conversations, both excellent books to help people develop some skills in the area. But if you're very involved in volunteering or working and you're having to solve problems with others, you'll start to learn from your own experience what approach works best for you and how do you listen and how do you understand where people are coming from? How do you not take things personally that probably weren't intended as personal attacks to begin with?
Right. And are there any favorite books or podcasts you have that you like to turn back to or just read?
I'm a big fan of Crucial Conversations. I'm also a certified trainer for Crucial Conversations, but the book is well written and the online tools that go with their resources are exceptional. They have a weekly email that comes out with different scenarios and how to handle it. Very practical advice on um, how do you move past things when people are getting stuck and they're not moving forward.
Okay, that's great. And nowadays we see a lot of opportunities being presented to students and a lot of students not taking the opportunities and running with them. How do you think that we can make the gap between that come together?
That's a great question. And COVID has made things even worse because it used to be I could see people and kind of grab them and make them do stuff. Now people can very easily hide in their bedrooms and just literally never come out, which makes it harder. And the other day I was meeting with a class and just saying, the biggest predictor of whether or not someone gets a job, and this is real numbers, not just my opinion, the biggest predictor is whether or not they were actively applying for jobs, which makes sense. And we know that. But the funny thing is, when I look at the numbers, the students are not always actively applying for jobs because it's scary. And it's this sense of, well, if I apply, they might reject me. You can't reject me if I don't apply, but they also can't hire you. And so a lot of it, I think, is we need to have support systems. We need to have people that we're working with that are encouraging us. This is why I love student organizations. Somebody that's going to say, hey, did you see that internship? Did you apply? Because doing it all by yourself, it's really easy to hide under a rock.
Right. And going off of that, you talk about the support system. I recently heard an analogy of each person should have their own board of directors, people that they can turn to for certain problems and roles. How do you think someone should go about selecting the people and creating an environment in which they can thrive in?
I agree 100%. We all need a personal board of directors, and it's another good place where informational interviews can help you because as you meet people and you learn their stories and you learn their gifts, and for me, I have my own little personal board of directors. They don't know they're on it. You don't tell people they're mentoring you. You don't tell them you're on the board. You just know who they are. But I would see you're really good at this and I'm not. And so now I know on those times where I need to be better at something, I can call you and say, what would you do? And then based on that, say, okay, let me try that. It's out of my comfort zone, but let me try it. So you have those people that you can reach out to in different situations to say, hey, I'm stuck here. What would you do? And they can give you a whole new perspective and let you try on some different skills that you may not have attempted yet.
That's great. And then another thing is that there's so much to learn from each of these people that sometimes students can get overwhelmed on what voices they should listen to, whether it's their own or someone else's. How do you recommend someone weed out the voices that they shouldn't listen to and the voices that they should listen to?
That's a great question, and it's something people struggle with their entire lives. My personal weakness is I want to do all of it, and there's not time. I think first and foremost, stay true to your own morals and your own values. I mean, you have to be clear on what's important to you. What do you believe? What are your limits? And then also, you need to know your own priorities. What's most important? Because you can't do it all now. There's a million things, especially when you're young. There's so many things. Actually, it doesn't get better when you're old. There's so many things you want to do, and you can't do it all at once. And so you kind of need to decide what's most important, and I'm going to focus on that. And these other things, I'm going to keep them in mind for the future, but I can't do it all well at once.
Okay, that makes sense. And then building off of that, there's certain skills and characteristics students need to have in order to succeed in the professional world. Are there one or two or maybe few skills and characteristics you think are more important than others?
The ability to seek out and receive feedback is so crucial in life. And as I talk to managers that are talking about their superstar employees, it's always the ones that can take feedback. And the ones that they're like, we're probably going to have to let them go, are the people like, it's too hard to coach them. It's just, they're never going to grow. They're so determined to be perfect the first time that I can't help them get any better. So we're probably, and it's sad because the ones that are trying hard to be perfect are the ones that are first to be let go. But the ones who recognize, I'm going to do the best I can, and then you're going to tell me how to get better, they are very successful. But again, asking for feedback is a scary thing. Receiving it can be even scarier, but the people that can do it do well.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think that's all about being very adaptable and just receiving the criticism and also being respectful of understanding that someone is probably a little bit more knowledgeable or a little bit more experienced and just growing from that. And does that just come from time and experience where you become more adaptable over time, or how does one, open themselves up?
It's not easy. A lot of it is a mindset that you have to realize that feedback is not a criticism of you as a human being. It's not a value judgment. It's advice on how to get better. And so when people are giving feedback, they're saying, hey, if you do this, you'll be even better. And that's a gift. It's an opportunity. But I'd like to say it's an age thing, but I work with a lot of companies, and I was working with a manager last week who said, I've got this employee and they been with us and I just can't promote him because I can't take feedback. I said, oh, are they young? She goes, no, he's in his 50s. He just can't take feedback. That's why everybody's getting promoted around him and he's not getting promoted. And the more he doesn't get promoted, the more angry and defensive he gets. And the more defensive he gets, the harder it is to give feedback. So Some of it is being willing to be vulnerable and recognize, if I say, hey, next time you do this, why don't you do it this way? I'm not saying you stink. I'm saying if you do it this way, you'll be even better.
Right, and that makes sense. And that's just through the power of conversations. And going off of that, you in your LinkedIn bio headline, I think it says passionate believer in leveraging differences through constructive conversations. How have you, used that to thrive in your roles?
I actively seek out people to work for me, with me, and around me who are very, very different from me. In fact, the people who are the most confounding for me, I think, are the people that are most useful for me to have around. Because if I surround myself with people that see things exactly like I do, we never grow, we never get better. We all just sit around and pat ourselves on the back for our brilliance. But when I surround myself with people who see things completely differently, it's frustrating and it takes longer and it's exhausting, and the results are so much better.
Very well said, Professor. And jumping a little bit away from that, I want to talk to you a little bit more about job searches. Nowadays, students are very lost when they're wondering, where should I apply? What should I apply for? What roles? And what do you think is the first step in trying to make it in the professional world?
Wow, that's a big question. I hate to sound like a broken record, but I kind of come back to the informational interviews again. The more clear you are on what you want to do, the easier it is to make it happen. The more you're kind of like, I'll do anything with a paycheck, the harder it is to actually get some traction and move forward. With that said, there's a balance. I mean, I have seen people that, there's like one particular job with one particular company and I've got to have that. And I'm always like, if that doesn't happen, what's your backup plan? Um, but you need to have a goal in mind of where you want to go. And those informational interviews will tell you the paths that are necessary to get to those goals. But honestly, you just have to keep applying and talking to people. Every time you apply for a job, you find an alumnus that's at that company, you reach out to them and say, hey, I just applied for a job. Do you have any advice for me? Now you've got an ally in the company that's on your side. You just have to kind of keep working at it, keep moving on it. It doesn't happen by magic.
Right. And that's 100%, fair to say. And you talk about falling back on something when, you don't when first option doesn't work out. I want to talk a little bit about falling forward. A lot of people constantly think about, oh, I have my parents to fall back on. Oh, I have everyone here who's to support me and things like that. But what does falling forward mean to you? Where you're constantly, you're on your path, but you're falling forward towards your goal.
I love that phrase. That's brilliant. Um, I guess so. Since I'm going to make up a definition because it's my first time hearing that phrase, I hope you trademark it if nobody else has.
Oh no, that's not from me. That's from Denzel Washington.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to read that. So for me though, I would kind of equate that with grit. And I think that's so important that, yeah, things are going to go wrong. Every step of the way, you're going to fall down. Things are going to go wrong. People are going to refuse to talk to you. You're going to get rejected. And I think the trick is to say, okay, now what? And as long as you're continuing to move in the direction you want to go, even if it wasn't the way you thought you were going to get there, the trick is you can't, get back in bed, pull the covers over your head and say, well, that didn't work. I mean, you just can't. Life's too short. And I know you said fallback plan of the parents. And as a mother of, kids in their late teens and early 20s, um, I'm going to make sure they don't live under a bridge. But I also know that they're going to struggle and they're going to suffer a little bit. And that's part of the process. That's how you figure it out is to have that struggle and to have those little failures. And that's without those things, and there's research, without the failure and the getting back up, you'll never really get true happiness and true success.
Right. And about the failures, a lot of people get stuck in analysis paralysis where they're trying to make everything perfect and they never actually, take the step to go forward and go out there and get it. How does one get over that hump?
That's where I use my personal board of directors. Because just like everyone else, I don't like taking big risks. I work for the government for a reason. I don't like high risk scenarios. And I've chosen people from my personal board of directors that are very risk oriented with entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, people that have done things that just terrify me. and they will call me out and say, you're being a, I have one that'll just call me names. You're being a big chicken. You need to pull up your big girl pants and get out there. I'm like, all right. But my personal board of directors pushes me. Having that accountability with people you respect that'll push you out of your comfort zone is wonderful and terrifying.
Yeah, I think that's very important. That's something I struggle with too, just that sense of accountability, staying disciplined, staying motivated. Um, I want to ask you something. What is your most valuable experience you've had? And that can be in the professional world, family, friends, whatever you'd like to share. What would you say has helped you grow and thrive?
I saw that you were going to ask that question, and it overwhelms me. Um, because there's so many, and it fits into two key buckets. One is my most massive failures were incredible for me, and I hated every minute of them, but oh my gosh, they shaped my future. And then relationships, the people that I've met along the way, I would not be where I am without those people. And it's funny, each person, it's so tiny, these little moments that have such big impact. And I do think you just kind of need to cherish every relationship you have, because it's the people that make it happen. And I'm pretty introverted. I don't like meeting new people. But every person that has been a part of my life and part of my career has been so valuable to where I am. I wouldn't have gotten anywhere by myself.
Yeah, I think that's very important to have the people around you pushing you on and just helping you make sure you stay true to yourself as well. So thank you for sharing that. And then final question is, if there's one piece of advice you can give to your students, any students out there, what would it be?
Well, by the same token that people have been so important and they're all valuable, don't waste your time on people that bring you down. Surround yourself with people who inspire you and push you and maybe even scare you a little bit because they get you out of your comfort zone and make you do things that you should that you don't want to. Surround yourself by those people. And if you've got people that you could look at them and go, well, compared to them, I got this covered, cut those people loose, because they're going to let you anchor yourself and they're not going to help you grow. And I know some people need help. By all means, make sure they get help, but you got to surround yourself by people that push you. Don't waste your time on toxic relationships.
Very well said. Professor Brulin, thank you for taking time to talk with me today.
Thank you.
Of course.